Commander Jake Morrison sat in the back row of the Galactic Council chamber and watched the alien delegates argue about humanity's latest invention. Dr. Lisa Carter had spent 3 years developing a new communication system that could send messages across the galaxy in seconds instead of days. But the Nexari ambassador was telling everyone that his people deserved the credit. "The humans simply followed our instructions," Ambassador Veltar said with a wave of his blue hand. "My scientists created the theory. The human just built what we told her to build." Jake knew this was a lie. He had watched Lisa work day and night in her lab. She had solved problems that the Nexari could not even understand. But no one in the council would listen to a human's word against an alien's. The Zephyrian delegate nodded his large head. "Humans are good workers. They do what they are told. But they cannot think like we do." Lisa Carter sat 3 rows ahead of Jake. Her shoulders were tight with anger, but she said nothing. Humans had learned long ago that speaking up in council meetings only made things worse. The Calthans were discussing the new Galactic Defense Initiative. They needed soldiers and ships to protect the outer worlds from pirates. Jake had commanded peacekeeping forces for 15 years. His teams had stopped 3 wars and saved millions of lives. But when the vote came, humans were not allowed to join the Defense Council. "Humans fight well enough," said the Calthan general. "But they cannot understand proper military strategy. They must follow orders, not make plans." Jake felt his jaw clench. Last month, his human tactical team had rescued a Calthan colony when their own generals had given up. The aliens had called it impossible. Jake's people had done it anyway. The meeting continued for 6 hours. Every time humans were mentioned, it was as workers or servants. The aliens spoke about humanity like they were useful animals. Smart enough to do jobs, but not smart enough to make decisions. When the council finally ended, Jake walked to the human district of the station. The streets were clean and well-maintained. Human engineers kept all the systems running. Human doctors treated patients from 12 different species. Human teachers educated alien children alongside human ones. But in the council chambers, none of this mattered. He found Lisa Carter in Murphy's bar staring at a glass of beer she had not touched. 3 years, she said when Jake sat down. 3 years of my life, and they act like I just followed a recipe. "I know," Jake said. "They do not see what we really do." Captain Ben Rodriguez joined them at the table. He commanded the human merchant fleet that carried goods between star systems. "Just got word from the Trade Council," he said. "They are cutting our shipping fees again. Say we charge too much for simple transport work." "Simple?" Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your ships handle the most dangerous routes in the galaxy. The Nexari won't even fly through half the systems you visit regularly." Ben nodded. "Last week my crew delivered medical supplies to a plague world. The Zephyrians were too scared to go themselves. But somehow we are just doing simple transport work." Ambassador Karen Wells arrived an hour later. She looked tired and old. 20 years of representing humanity in the galactic government had worn her down. "I have been going through the records," she said. "Do you want to know what I found?" The 3 of them waited. In the past 50 years, humans have solved 67 major crises that other species could not handle. We have developed 43 new technologies. We have stopped 12 wars and prevented 8 famines. And in the official records, we get credit for exactly none of it. Jake was not surprised, but hearing the numbers still hurt. "What do you want to do about it?" Karen pulled out a datapad and set it on the table. "Article 847 of the Confederation Charter. Any member species can withdraw from the Alliance with 6 months' notice." The table went quiet. Around them, other humans were talking and laughing. They had no idea what was being discussed. "You want us to leave?" Ben asked. "I want us to stop pretending this is working," Karen said. We have been part of this confederation for 200 years. In all that time, we have never been treated as equals. We are workers, soldiers, and servants, nothing more. Lisa leaned forward. What happens if we leave? We find out if we can make it on our own. We take our ships, our people, and our knowledge. We settle the outer rim worlds that nobody else wants. We build our own civilization. Jake thought about his years in the peacekeeping forces. He thought about all the times alien commanders had ignored his advice, then blamed him when their plans failed. He thought about watching human soldiers die because alien generals were too proud to listen to human tactics. How many humans are there in Confederation space? He asked. 300 billion across 50,000 worlds, Karen said. Most of them doing jobs that keep this civilization running. Ben was looking at his data pad. My fleet has 8,000 ships. We handle about 60% of all cargo transport in this sector. And my engineering teams maintain life support systems on 40% of Confederation stations, Lisa added. Karen smiled for the first time in months. So what do you think happens when we all leave at the same time? Jake understood. For 2 centuries, humans had been the invisible foundation holding the Galactic Confederation together. They fixed what was broken, solved what seemed impossible, and kept everything running smoothly. And they had become so good at it that the aliens had forgotten how much they needed human help. They think we are just workers, he said slowly. They think anyone can do what we do. Only one way to find out, Karen said. I am calling a vote of the Human Council tomorrow. 6 months' notice. Clean break. No demands, no negotiations. We just leave. The next morning, the vote was unanimous. Every human representative voted to invoke Article 847. The news spread through human communities across the galaxy within hours. Most humans were ready to go. They had been waiting for someone to finally say, enough was enough. The alien reaction was mixed. Some species were confused, others were angry, but most just thought humans were being dramatic. They would come crawling back within a year, begging to be readmitted to the Confederation. The Calthans made jokes about humans trying to survive without alien protection. The Zephyrians bet on how long it would take for human colonies to fail. The Nexari were already planning which human worlds they would claim once the humans abandoned them. None of them had bothered to ask a simple question. What happens when the people who actually keep your civilization working decide to stop? They were about to find out. Admiral Tony Parker stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Dawn and watched the biggest migration in galactic history begin. 300 billion humans were packing up their lives and leaving the Confederation behind. It was his job to make sure they all got out safely. The first convoy of ships was already loaded and ready to go. Families with children, elderly couples, young workers starting new lives. They had filled cargo holds with personal belongings and memories of the worlds they were leaving behind. But they were not sad. Most of them looked excited. Admiral, we have clearance from Zephyrian Traffic Control, his communications officer reported. They seem eager to get us moving. Tony was not surprised. The aliens thought this was a good thing. They believed humans were troublemakers who complained too much. Getting rid of 300 billion complainers would make their lives easier. Chief Engineer Sam Davis was working on the station's lower levels. His team was carefully shutting down systems that humans had built or modified over the years. The work was slow and precise. They did not want to break anything important. How many systems are we responsible for? His assistant asked. Sam checked his list. On this station alone, about 70% of life support, all of the waste recycling, most of the gravity generators, and the main power distribution network. What happens when we are gone? The Zephyrians say they can handle it. They have manuals and training programs. Sam did not sound convinced. Of course, most of these systems do not work exactly like the manuals say anymore. Over the past 100 years, Human engineers had made thousands of small improvements. A better power coupling here, a more efficient waste processor there. Each change made the systems work better, but also made them different from the original designs. The improvements were never officially recorded because humans were not supposed to change alien technology without permission. Dr. Alex Thompson was packing up his research on the planet Calthos Prime. He had spent 10 years studying how different species adapted to various environments. His findings were disturbing. "The problem is specialization," he told his research team as they loaded data files. "Every alien species is perfectly adapted to certain conditions. Calthans love high-gravity worlds. Nexari thrive in low oxygen environments. Zephyrians prefer cold temperatures." "And humans?" asked his assistant. "Humans adapt to anything. We are the only species that can work effectively in any environment. That is why we end up doing all the jobs that others cannot handle." Alex's research showed that humans were working on worlds that other species could not even visit safely. Mining operations in toxic atmospheres, agricultural projects on planets with deadly radiation, scientific research in conditions that would kill most aliens within hours. The Confederation had never officially acknowledged this. In their records, humans were just general workers. But the reality was that humans were the only species keeping many of these dangerous but profitable projects running. Colony Director Nina Foster was overseeing the evacuation of New Texas, a farming world in the Outer Confederation. The planet grew food for 12 star systems. Human farmers had spent 50 years developing crops that could grow in the planet's unusual soil. "What about the crops?" asked Mayor Pete Wilson. "The Nexari say they will send their own farmers to take over." Nina looked at the vast fields of hybrid grain that fed billions of people. "These plants will not grow for Nexari farmers. The soil here is toxic to most species. We developed special bacteria to neutralize the poison. The process takes years of careful management." "Did you teach the Nexari how to do it?" "We tried. They said our methods were too complicated. They want to use their own farming techniques." Nina knew the Nexari techniques would not work on New Texas. The planet would be barren within 2 years. But the Confederation authorities had made it clear that human knowledge was not worth preserving. Captain Ben Rodriguez was coordinating the merchant fleet exodus. His ships carried everything from basic supplies to high-tech equipment. Human cargo vessels had been the backbone of galactic trade for decades. "Status report," he asked his fleet commanders. "All ships loaded and ready for departure," came the reply. "We are pulling out of 47 trade routes across this sector." "What about replacement ships?" "The Calthans say they have enough vessels to handle the important routes. They are letting the smaller trade routes shut down temporarily." Ben knew those smaller routes were not really smaller. They connected farming worlds to food distribution centers. They carried medical supplies to remote colonies. They transported parts and equipment that kept space stations running. The aliens thought these routes were unimportant because they did not carry expensive luxury goods. The first real problem started on the 3rd day of the Exodus. Waste recycling systems on Calthan worlds began backing up. The aliens had operating manuals, but the systems had been modified so many times that the manuals were useless. A Calthan engineer named Grex was staring at a massive waste processor that had stopped working. "The manual says to adjust the primary flow valve, but there are 3 primary flow valves here, and none of them match the diagram." His supervisor was not helpful. "Just follow the instructions exactly. Humans are not that smart. If they could make it work, we can too." But the humans had not been following the original instructions for decades. They had rebuilt the system piece by piece, making it more efficient and reliable. The current design bore almost no resemblance to what the Calthans had originally built. Similar problems were appearing across the galaxy. Power systems that should have been simple were refusing to start. Environmental controls were fluctuating wildly. Communications networks were developing strange delays and echo effects. The aliens were not worried yet. These were just minor technical problems. Their own engineers would figure everything out soon enough. Dr. Rachel Morgan was a Colthan Systems analyst working on the Confederation capital world. She was one of the few aliens who understood how much humans actually contributed to galactic infrastructure. Her job was to track and maintain critical systems across Confederation space. "We have a problem," she told her supervisor. "I have been reviewing maintenance records for the past 6 months. Humans were responsible for 73% of all system repairs and upgrades." "That cannot be right. Humans just do basic maintenance work." Rachel showed him the data. "Look at this power grid failure on Nexari Prime last month. The official report says Nexari engineers fixed it, but the actual repair work was done by a human technical team. The Nexari engineers supervised, but they did not touch any of the equipment." Her supervisor studied the records. "This happens often? Every major repair in the past 5 years follows the same pattern. Alien engineers identify the problem and create a repair plan. Human technicians do the actual work. Alien engineers take credit for the success." Rachel had found hundreds of similar cases. The Confederation had been running on human labor and human knowledge for so long that most aliens had forgotten how to do technical work themselves. On the 5th day of the Exodus, the first major failure occurred. The atmospheric processors on Nexari Prime stopped working completely. These machines cleaned the air for billions of Nexari citizens. Without them, the planet would become unlivable within weeks. The head of planetary maintenance was in a panic. "Get the human engineers back here immediately. Offer them anything they want." But the human engineers were already 3 days away, traveling toward the outer rim in converted cargo ships. They had politely declined several requests to return and help with the crisis. The Nexari tried to restart the processors using their original technical manuals, but the machines had been upgraded and modified dozens of times over the past century. The current systems were 3 times more efficient than the original design, but they no longer resembled anything in the manuals. Food riots began on former human agricultural worlds as alien farmers discovered they could not maintain the crop yields that human farmers had achieved. The hybrid plants died without human care. The soil treatment programs failed without human supervision. Admiral Parker received daily reports about the growing chaos behind them. Each day brought news of new system failures and emerging crises. But he also received messages from alien governments promising better treatment if humans would just come back. "They still do not understand," he told his staff. "They think this is about money or status. They do not realize we are tired of being invisible." The exodus continued. Every day, more human ships left Confederation space. Every day, more critical systems failed without human maintenance. And every day, the aliens became more desperate to convince themselves that these were just temporary problems that would be easily solved. They were wrong. The problems were just beginning. Director Matt Johnson was eating breakfast on the colony ship Freedom when his old supervisor called. The Zephyrian looked desperate on the video screen. "Matt, you have to come back. The planetary defense network is failing, and we cannot figure out why. You are the only one who understands these systems." Matt had spent 12 years maintaining Zephyrian defense networks. He had upgraded them, fixed them, and improved them countless times. But he had never been allowed to document his changes, because humans were not supposed to modify alien military equipment. "I am sorry, Director Zolt. I am no longer employed by the Confederation. You will have to solve this problem yourselves." "But you are the crisis management specialist. This is what you do." "What I did," Matt corrected. "I suggest you consult your technical manuals. I am sure they contain all the information you need." Matt knew the manuals were useless. The current defense networks were completely different from the original Zephyrian designs. He had rebuilt them from the ground up to handle modern threats. But since humans were not supposed to think or innovate, his improvements had never been officially recorded. Investigator Claire Wilson was a Nexari journalist who specialized in government corruption. She had started investigating the human exodus as a simple news story. What she found changed everything she thought she knew about the Confederation. "This does not make sense," she told her editor. "According to official records, humans have contributed almost nothing to our technological development. But I have been interviewing engineers and scientists. They all say the same thing. Humans solve problems that no one else can handle." Her editor was skeptical. "You think there is a conspiracy to hide human contributions?" "I think there is a conspiracy to ignore them. Look at this case study." Claire showed him a report about a space station disaster from 5 years ago. The official investigation credits Nexari engineers with saving the station. But I interviewed the actual engineers. They say a human technical team did all the real work. Claire had found dozens of similar cases. Every major technological breakthrough in the past century had significant human input that was never officially acknowledged. The pattern was always the same. Aliens took credit for the ideas. Humans did the actual work. General Pete Sullivan was reviewing military reports from his cabin on the transport ship Liberty. The news was not good for the Confederation. Peacekeeping. Missions were failing across the galaxy. "The problem is tactical flexibility," he explained to his staff officers. "Alien military doctrine is based on rigid protocols. They train for specific scenarios and follow predetermined responses. And human doctrine? We adapt. When a plan does not work, we change it. When the enemy does something unexpected, we respond with something unexpected. Other species call it chaos. We call it winning." Pete had commanded joint military operations for 20 years. He had watched alien commanders follow failed strategies because their training manuals said those strategies should work. Human officers learned to work around alien incompetence, but they never got credit for their tactical innovations. Dr. Rachel Morgan was working 18-hour days trying to understand the scope of the infrastructure crisis. What she discovered terrified her. The Confederation was held together by human knowledge that existed nowhere except in human minds. 73% of critical systems have undocumented human modifications, she reported to the Emergency Council. "These are not minor changes. These are complete rebuilds that make our technology actually work in real-world conditions." The Calthan counselor was angry. "You are saying our technology does not work?" "I am saying our technology works because humans made it work. The original designs were flawed. Human engineers spent decades fixing those flaws. But since humans were not supposed to make changes, their improvements were never documented." Rachel showed them a detailed analysis of the failed atmospheric processors on Nexari Prime. These machines were built to handle the atmospheric conditions from 200 years ago, but planetary atmospheres change over time. Human engineers continuously adjusted the processors to handle new conditions. When humans left, the machines were still trying to clean an atmosphere that no longer exists. The first major disaster struck on the 10th day of the Exodus. The Nexari homeworld's atmospheric processors failed completely. Billions of people were trapped on a planet with increasingly toxic air. The Confederation government declared a state of emergency. Emergency teams tried everything they could think of. They followed every manual and procedure in their databases. Nothing worked. The machines were too different from their original designs. In desperation, they sent a message to the human Exodus fleet. They offered full Confederation citizenship, complete equality, and massive financial compensation if humans would return and fix the crisis. The human response was polite but firm. "We are no longer part of the Confederation. We suggest you contact your own technical experts for assistance." Food riots spread to 12 worlds as agricultural systems collapsed. Human farmers had been growing hybrid crops that could survive in harsh conditions. Without human knowledge, alien farmers could not maintain these crops. Worlds that had been producing surplus food were now facing starvation. Claire Wilson published her investigation in the largest news network in Confederation space. The story revealed 2 centuries of systematic discrimination against humans. More importantly, it showed how human contributions had been hidden and ignored. Every major crisis in Confederation history was solved by human innovation, she wrote. Every technological advance had human input that was never acknowledged. We built our civilization on human labor and human knowledge, then convinced ourselves that humans were just workers. The article caused riots on several worlds. Some aliens were angry at humans for abandoning them. Others were angry at their own governments for lying about human contributions. Many were simply terrified about what would happen next. The Galactic Communications Network suffered a cascade failure on day 15. The network used quantum entanglement protocols that human scientists had developed, but the original research had been credited to Zephyrian physicists. When the system broke down, the Zephyrians discovered they did not actually understand how it worked. Star systems lost contact with each other. Trade stopped. Emergency services could not coordinate responses. The Confederation government could not communicate with its own colonies. Director Matt Johnson received hundreds of desperate messages from his former colleagues. Each message offered more money and more privileges if he would just come back and fix their problems. He deleted them all without responding. They still do not understand, he told his wife. They think this is about money or respect. They do not realize we are tired of being invisible. Refugee ships began arriving at the edge of human space. These were not human refugees. They were aliens fleeing worlds that had become uninhabitable without human maintenance. Their governments had told them that humans were just workers. Now, they were learning the truth. President Carol Adams of the new human-free territories faced a difficult decision. Thousands of alien refugees were requesting sanctuary in human space. These aliens had personally never discriminated against humans. Many of them had been friends and colleagues. We cannot save everyone, Admiral Parker warned her. Our resources are limited. We need to focus on building our own civilization. But we can save some, Adams replied. We are not leaving the Confederation because we hate aliens. We are leaving because we were not treated as equals. Any alien who wants to join us as an equal partner is welcome. The refugee camps became testing grounds for human principles. Aliens who had always seen humans as workers now had to accept human leadership. Some adapted quickly. Others could not handle the role reversal. General Sullivan established defense perimeters around human space as reports came in of alien military movements. Some species were considering forced repatriation of humans. They planned to invade human colonies and drag humans back to fix their broken systems. Let them come, Sullivan told his commanders. They are about to learn the difference between human tactics under alien command and human tactics under human command. The Confederation military had always used human soldiers as expendable shock troops. They were good for charging enemy positions and absorbing casualties. But human strategic thinking had been systematically suppressed by alien commanders who thought they knew better. Now the aliens would face human military doctrine without alien interference. They would discover that humans had been holding back for centuries, following orders instead of following their instincts. The galactic economy entered free fall as trade networks collapsed. Complex supply chains that had seemed automated were actually managed by human coordinators who made thousands of daily adjustments. Without human oversight, automated systems began making catastrophically poor decisions. Dr. Morgan published her final report before the Confederation government collapsed. The Confederation was never a partnership of equals, she wrote. It was a human-operated machine with alien managers who did not understand how their own civilization worked. By day 20 of the Exodus, 12 star systems had declared independence from the Confederation. 3 species had withdrawn from. President Carol Adams stood in the command center of New Earth Station and watched the Confederation fall apart on the main screen. 20 star systems had lost basic life support. 30 colonies were reporting food shortages. The Galactic Communication Network was down completely. Her aide handed her another message from the Zephyrian High Council. They are offering us complete autonomy within the Confederation structure. We would govern ourselves but remain technically part of their alliance. Carol read the message and deleted it. Tell them what I told the others. We are not interested in being junior partners anymore. If they want to join our alliance as equals, they are welcome to apply. The offers kept coming. Every day brought new proposals from desperate alien governments. They promised money, territory, special privileges, anything they thought might convince humans to return. None of them offered the one thing humans actually wanted: genuine equality and respect. Crisis Manager Rick Turner was documenting the collapse from his office on Colony Station Alpha. His job had been to coordinate disaster response across Confederation space. Now he was watching disasters that no one knew how to handle. The Zephyrian financial networks crashed this morning, his assistant reported. Their automated trading systems have been making terrible decisions for weeks. They lost 30% of their planetary investments in a single day. Rick was not surprised. The financial networks had been designed by Zephyrian economists who understood basic market theory. But human mathematicians had been the ones who actually made the systems work in the real world. They had developed algorithms that could handle unexpected market changes and complex economic interactions. What about the Calthon industrial worlds? Manufacturing is down 60% across their core systems. Their factory automation keeps breaking down without human technicians to maintain it. Rick had spent 15 years fixing problems that alien experts said were impossible to solve. Now those same experts were discovering that impossible problems stayed impossible when humans were not around to solve them. Admiral Linda Hayes commanded the human defense fleet protecting the Outer Rim territories. Her ships were constantly intercepting alien military vessels trying to reach human space. Most of these ships carried diplomats with increasingly desperate offers. Some carried military forces with more direct intentions. Calthon Battle Fleet, approaching Sector 7, her tactical officer reported. 12 heavy cruisers and escort vessels. They are not responding to our communications. Linda studied the tactical display. The Calthon fleet was using standard Confederation attack formations. She had studied these formations for years while serving under alien commanders. She knew every weakness and limitation. Launch fighter squadrons and prepare for engagement. Show them what human military doctrine looks like when we are not following alien orders. The battle was swift and decisive. Human fighters used unpredictable attack patterns that confused Calthon targeting systems. Human capital ships coordinated their attacks in ways that alien tactical computers could not anticipate. The Calthon fleet was crippled within an hour. The surviving Calthon commander sent a surrender signal. How did you defeat us so easily? Your fleet is smaller than ours. You trained us to fight your wars, Linda replied, but you never let us fight our way. Economist Paul Green was tracking the galactic economic collapse from his research station. The numbers were staggering. Galactic GDP had dropped 40% in just 2 months. Interstellar trade was down 70%. Entire economic sectors were shutting down. The problem is supply chain management, he explained to his team. The aliens thought their trade networks were automated, but human coordinators were making thousands of daily adjustments to keep goods flowing efficiently. Paul showed them a case study of medical supply distribution. This network was supposed to automatically distribute medicines to where they were needed most. But the automation only worked because human managers constantly updated the algorithms based on changing conditions. Without human oversight, the automated systems were sending winter flu medicine to desert planets and heat stroke treatments to ice worlds. Critical supplies were piling up in the wrong places while people died for lack of basic medications. The second major catastrophe occurred when the Nexari power grid failed completely. The grid was a marvel of engineering that provided clean energy to billions of people across dozens of star systems. But it had been built and maintained by human engineers who understood power distribution better than the aliens who had designed it. Nexari. Chief Engineer Vextal stared at the massive control room displays showing red warning lights across the entire grid. How is this possible? The system was designed to be foolproof. His human replacement had left detailed notes about grid maintenance, but the notes described a system that bore little resemblance to the original Nexari design. Human engineers had rebuilt the grid piece by piece over 50 years, making it more efficient and more reliable. But they had never been allowed to update the official documentation. The humans changed everything, Vextal realized. This is not our power grid anymore. This is a human power grid that we never bothered to understand. The grid failure cascaded across Nexari space. Factories shut down, life support systems failed, transportation networks stopped working. Billions of people were trapped on worlds without power, heat, or artificial gravity. Engineer Maria Santos was working in the research labs of New Horizon Colony, developing technologies that the Confederation had never allowed humans to pursue. Freed from alien oversight and regulations, human science was advancing at an incredible pace. "We have successfully tested the new propulsion system," she reported to President Adams. "It is 3 times faster than anything the Confederation ever built." The new drive systems used principles that human physicists had proposed decades ago, but the Confederation Science Council had rejected their proposals, claiming that humans did not understand advanced physics well enough to make such innovations. What about the environmental systems? Even better. We can terraform hostile worlds. In half the time, using techniques the aliens said were impossible. Maria was part of a generation of human scientists who had been held back by alien prejudice. Now they were proving that human innovation had always been limited by alien narrow-mindedness, not by human capability. Admiral Dan Roberts coordinated the defense of human space against increasingly desperate alien attacks. Each assault followed the same pattern. Alien forces would use standard military doctrine against human forces that had abandoned standard doctrine completely. "Third Zephyrian Fleet destroyed in Sector 12, his communications officer reported. "They are requesting permission to withdraw." "Granted. Send them our standard message about applying for Peaceful Alliance membership. The alien military..." Attacks were becoming less frequent as word spread about human military capabilities. Species that had thought humans were just useful soldiers were learning that human soldiers under human command were far more dangerous than human soldiers. Following alien orders, historian Julie Brown was compiling the definitive record of the Confederation's collapse. Her research revealed the systematic way that human contributions had been minimized and hidden for centuries. "It was not accidental," she wrote in her daily report. "The racial hierarchy that kept other species in power required that human capabilities be downplayed. Acknowledging human intelligence and innovation would have undermined the entire social structure." Julie had found internal government documents that showed alien leaders knew exactly how much they depended on human labor and knowledge, but they had deliberately suppressed this information to maintain their positions of authority. The refugee crisis intensified as more alien colonies became uninhabitable. Millions of aliens were fleeing worlds where basic systems had failed. Some tried to reach human space. Others wandered between star systems in overcrowded ships looking for any world that would accept them. President Adams established refugee processing centers at the edge of human space. Any alien who was willing to accept human leadership and contribute to human society was welcome. But aliens who expected to be treated as superior to humans were politely redirected elsewhere. "We are not seeking revenge," Adams explained to the refugee coordinators. "But we are also not going back to the old system where humans do the work and aliens take the credit." The processing centers became cultural laboratories where humans and aliens learned to work together as equals. Some aliens adapted quickly and became valuable members of human society. Others could not handle the loss of their privileged status and chose to leave. Ambassador Steve Clark was handling negotiations with the few alien governments that were still functional. Most of these negotiations involved aliens requesting human assistance with critical system failures. The Calthan Industrial Council wants to hire human engineers to restart their manufacturing sector, he reported to President Adams. They are full contractor rates, complete authority over technical decisions, and official recognition of human expertise. Adams considered the offer. Tell them we will consider it if they publicly acknowledge that their industrial sector was built and maintained by human knowledge that they never bothered to understand. Ambassador Steve Clark walked through the refugee camp on Border Station 1 and watched former alien overlords learning to stand in line for food rations. 5 million aliens had fled to human space in the past 6 months. Most of them were ordinary citizens whose worlds had become uninhabitable when basic systems failed. How are they adapting? Asked Director Kim Wallace, who managed the Refugee Integration Program. Better than expected, Steve replied. The ones who make it here are usually the ones who figured out that humans were not actually inferior. They just want a chance to rebuild their lives. The camp was organized by human efficiency standards, not alien hierarchy. Everyone waited their turn, regardless of species. Everyone contributed to camp maintenance regardless of their previous social status. Former Nexari nobles worked alongside Calthan laborers and Zephyrian merchants. Engineer Maria Santos was in her laboratory on New Terra, developing the technologies that would define human civilization. Without alien restrictions, human science had advanced more in 6 months than it had in the previous 50 years. The new terraforming system is ready for testing, she told President Adams during their weekly technology briefing. We can make hostile worlds livable in 18 months instead of 5 years. What about the deep space exploration program? The new ships can travel faster and farther than anything ever built. We will be able to explore regions of space that other species considered unreachable. Maria represented a generation of human scientists who had been forced to work within alien limitations for their entire careers. Now they were discovering what human innovation could accomplish when freed from alien prejudice and bureaucracy. Admiral Dan Roberts was establishing the Human Commonwealth Navy as the most advanced military force in galactic history. His ships used tactics and technologies that no alien military could counter. Intelligence reports that several alien species are forming new alliances, his aide reported. They want to try another military approach to forcing human cooperation. Dan was not concerned. Let them try. Every battle teaches them the same lesson. Human military doctrine under human command is superior to anything they can field. For alien military problem was not lack of courage or equipment. The problem was rigid thinking. Alien commanders followed predetermined strategies based on theoretical scenarios. Human commanders adapted their strategies based on real battlefield conditions. Historian Julie Brown published her comprehensive study of the Confederation's collapse. The book became required reading in human schools and was translated into dozens of alien languages. The fall of the Galactic Confederation was not caused by human selfishness or alien incompetence, she wrote. It was caused by a social system that wasted human potential and ignored human contributions. When humans finally left, they took with them the knowledge and skills that had been holding alien civilization together. Julie's research proved that the Confederation could have survived if aliens had treated humans as equals from the beginning, but the racial hierarchy that kept aliens in power required that human capabilities be systematically undervalued. President Carol Adams stood in the Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station and addressed the founding Congress of the Human Commonwealth. Representatives from 300 human worlds had gathered to create a new form of government. We are not building an empire, she told the assembled delegates. We are building a partnership. Any species that wants to join us as equals is welcome. Any species that wants to dominate us will be disappointed. The Commonwealth Constitution guaranteed equal rights and representation for all citizens regardless of species. But it also made clear that human values and human leadership would define the new civilization. Several alien species had already applied for Commonwealth membership. The Kalari, a small species that had been marginalized by the Confederation, were the first to be accepted. They brought valuable knowledge about interstellar navigation and were eager to contribute to human society. Colony Director Nina Foster was overseeing the development of the Outer Rim territories. These worlds had been considered worthless by the Confederation because they required extensive terraforming and environmental modification. But human engineers saw them as opportunities. Agricultural production is exceeding all projections, she reported to the Colonial Development Board. We are growing more food on these frontier worlds than we ever did in Confederation space. The new farming techniques combined human adaptability with advanced technology. Human farmers could work in conditions that would kill other species, and human scientists had developed crops that could grow in environments that aliens considered impossible. Crisis Manager Rick Turner was working for the Commonwealth Disaster Response Agency, but now he was preventing disasters instead of just responding to them. Human crisis management was based on anticipating problems before they became critical. We have early warning systems that the Confederation never developed, he explained to his new staff. We monitor system performance continuously and fix small problems before they become big ones. Rick's teams had prevented dozens of potential disasters in Commonwealth space. The proactive approach was more efficient than the Confederation's reactive method of waiting for things to break down completely. Captain Ben Rodriguez commanded the Commonwealth Merchant Fleet, which had become the most efficient trade network in galactic history. Human logistics and organizational skills created supply chains that other species could not match. Trade volume is up 300% compared to Confederation levels, he reported to the Economic Council. We are moving more goods with fewer ships because we actually understand how supply chains work. The Commonwealth Trade Network served both human and alien worlds, but unlike the Confederation system, it was designed for efficiency rather than alien profit margins. Ambassador Steve Clark received a delegation from the Zephyrian High Council, the last functioning government from the old Confederation. They had come to make one final offer. We propose a merger, the lead Zephyrian diplomat said. The Zephyrian Republic and the Human Commonwealth would form a new galactic alliance with shared leadership. Steve had been expecting this offer. The Zephyrians were the only alien species that had managed to keep most of their civilization functioning, but they were struggling with technological problems that only humans could solve. What would shared leadership look like? Steve asked. Alternating terms. A Zephyrian leader for 5 years, then a human leader for 5 years. Steve smiled politely. We appreciate the offer, but we are not interested in sharing leadership with anyone. If the Zephyrian Republic wants to join the Commonwealth as a member state, we would be happy to consider your application. The Zephyrians were shocked. They had expected humans to jump at the chance to partner with the most advanced remaining alien civilization. They could not understand that humans no longer needed alien approval or partnership. Dr. Alex Thompson was studying the long-term effects of the Confederation's collapse. His research showed that most alien species were adapting poorly to life, without human support. The problem is learned helplessness, he explained to his research team. For 2 centuries, aliens have relied on humans to solve their difficult problems. Now they have lost the ability to innovate and adapt on their own. Some alien species were recovering better than others. The ones that had maintained their own technical knowledge were rebuilding successfully, but species that had become completely dependent on human expertise were facing permanent decline. Admiral Linda Hayes was commanding the Commonwealth Exploration Fleet, mapping regions of space that had never been surveyed. Human ships could travel farther and explore more dangerous areas than alien vessels. We have discovered 17 habitable worlds in the past month, she reported to the Expansion Council. All of them are in regions that aliens considered too dangerous to explore. The Commonwealth was expanding into areas of space that offered unlimited opportunities for growth and development. Meanwhile, the remaining alien civilizations were fighting over the limited resources of their traditional territories. Engineer Sam Davis was retrofitting alien refugee settlements with Commonwealth technology. The refugees were amazed by the efficiency and reliability of human engineering. "Your power systems never fail," a Nexari refugee told him. "In Confederation space, we had power outages every few days. That is because we design systems to work in real conditions," Sam explained. "Confederation engineers designed systems that looked good on paper but failed in practice. The refugee settlements became demonstrations of human technological superiority. Aliens who had thought humans were just workers were learning that human engineering was superior to anything their own species had ever developed." The climax came when the three surviving major alien species made a joint offer to restore the Galactic Confederation with humans as full partners. They promised complete equality, shared leadership, and recognition of human contributions. President Adams read the offer carefully before responding. "We appreciate your recognition of our capabilities, but we are no longer interested in joining alien institutions. We have built something better. But think of what we could accomplish together," the alien delegates argued. "Human innovation combined with our resources and knowledge.